Okay, before we go back to the speakers, I just want to say, Councillor Perruzza, your motion for the North Spirit Distillery, do you just want to move it? Okay. On MM 2852, no, just move it. It's a quick item. Okay. On favor? Carried. MM 2852. Councillor Fletcher, are you around? All right. So let's go back to the speakers list on the item. Okay. Councillor Holiday to speak.
Thank you, Speaker. I wanted to move a motion. It's been pre-circulated for quite some time, and there's a fair amount to it, but it really asks for the General Manager to provide us ward-specific information and details, to consult with us, especially about things that members of Council may have received or learned, especially during that period where 311 does not take service requests following a winter event. And then look at things like the appropriateness of the equipment, the width of the blades. That's something I hear a lot about, either they're too narrow or too wide. And to look at what the standards are with respect to the pavement clearing width that those blades do as they pass along the road. And the reason for that is that's based on some of the types of complaints that I received this past winter. And members may wish to expand on this, or they don't have to, but I would love to have some investigation and reporting on some of the issues that I saw in the ward. And they were very specific. Things like a plow would go down the center of the road with one pass and maybe leave some snow on the road and not come back for a very, very long time. And residents would call and say, you know, what's happened here? You know, normally the machines come along and they clear both sides of the road. In this case, city, you came once and you didn't return. You didn't actually clear the pavement. And in other cases where it didn't clear it to the edge of the road. And, you know, I think we need to take a look at these things. The situations in other wards may have been different. And what I would say is, I believe in the system that we chose as a council. We elected to get some contractors. This is what we've done for a very long time. The staff had a different approach to the number of contractors. You know, this has gone through a few different cycles. But I go back to this past winter. I've lived in the community that I grew up in, and you know, for almost 50 years, and I've seen lots and lots of snow events. Lived them as a citizen, love them, hate them. You get a good feeling for how things work. But something was different about this winter. And it's not even that it was a different contractor, just something operated differently. And it wasn't just me that sensed that personally. It was the people that called the office. And look, we've all lived through snow events. Sometimes people call right away, they're not happy with something. Sometimes people will take a long time to call and they say, you know, councillor, something's just not quite right. But in this case, the councillor's office was inundated with calls, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls. And it lined up with my personal experience that something was off. People had that sense. You know, entire roads weren't fully cleared for a very long time. And I think people are patient when there's a big, long storm. They understand there's a lot of snow. People are out working, clearly. Sometimes things take a little bit longer than when there's just a few inches of snow. But this went on for days. And I saw sidewalks that weren't clear for days and days and days and days on end. And it just didn't square up to the previous experiences. And I think we owe it to the citizens of the city to dig into this a little bit deeper. I want to dig into this a little bit deeper. And I felt it was important to place a motion to do that because it's important that council takes an interest in this. I know that we can do better, and I know that citizens have asked us to do better. I think that the fundamental pieces are there, but we have to get in and look under the hood, so to speak, about what has happened. People know that I'm on the Service Excellence Committee. I like data. I like trying to understand where things worked and didn't work. I like seeing the patterns. Councillor Fletcher talked about 400 calls for plow. There's something more like almost 1,500 calls in the month of February related to snow in Ward 2. There's a lot of information and storytelling in there, and there's a lot that I have to offer as a councillor about what I've learned, and that needs to come together, and we need to work backwards and figure out what went off track. And so I hope you'll support that motion, but I also really hope that you'll think about what's happened in your own ward and your part of the city and your unique needs, because we've got to get this right. I know citizens were very, very upset, and they look, rightly so, to their councillor to get things fixed. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Matlow.
Madam Speaker, I want to speak for a moment about improving our standards and support for our residents for one of the most basic. I'm so sorry. Once again, the same councillor is speaking very loudly. Councillor Perruzza, I apologize for pointing you out, but you are being very loud and it is distracting. I appreciate it. Thank you. I want us to talk about improving our standards and support for residents for what I would describe as a basic service in a Canadian city during the snow. And then I also want to talk about trust. So with respect to standards, a few years ago, there were a handful of us who wanted the contracts that were very hastily brought to this council to go to a committee for our ability to better understand what it meant, what service standards were there, what the expectations were, what accountability would be in there. I want to acknowledge Councillor Ainsley for his leadership on that. It hasn't been mentioned well enough over the past few weeks, but it's true. And but we ended up with those contracts, and I think there are reasonable questions to be asked. And I'm glad that the mayor supports a review to understand what's working, what's not, and do we need to go back to those contractors and say we need a better relationship and a better relationship based on accountability to residents, to us. I also don't believe that we're doing a good enough job. It's one thing it is unreasonable, I think all of us would agree, to complain that the snow hasn't been cleared the day after it's fallen, especially when it's like 50 centimeters. I get that. And maybe even a few days, like give us a little bit of room to be able to deal with a big city. But after a week, after 2 weeks, some residents have characterized it as that it looks like the city's strategy is just to wait for spring to clear the snow. And I understand that cynicism, because each time that we've had a major snowstorm back in 2022 and other years, there's always this promise of a review, there's always a report, there's always promises to do better, and then we fall into the same situation. My hope is that this review will be real and meaningful, but I also want to encourage staff that when you come back to us, speak truth to power. If you need more resources, if there's something they're doing in Montreal or another jurisdiction that we can learn from, that we can improve on, bring it to us. Then we'll debate if we want to invest that or not. But residents are telling us, those people with disabilities who really were trapped in their homes for a week or two because they didn't have a safe or accessible sidewalk to walk or roll from their home to wherever they were going. Seniors with mobility challenges, young parents pushing strollers into live lanes of traffic because they couldn't get through the sidewalk. These are real experiences. And that's where I want to lead to trust from. And it's not just you and transportation services or City of Toronto or any government or any private company for that matter, or not-for-profit. Large organizations seem to have this default place that they go to, that when they feel defensive, that they have to put out good news. Press releases boasting about how awesome they are and what a great job they're doing. And there really is this, what when we're boasting about how many tons of snow we're clearing and what a great job we're doing, when we're advertising that we're ready for winter, that Toronto's, on top of this, but in real life, people's sidewalks either haven't been cleared or the neighbors got together and cleared them, and then the plow just shoved the snow back up on top of it. People don't trust the city or any organization that would do that. So I would encourage, and I say this really constructive criticism, I hope, whether you're in an interpersonal relationship or professional or whatever, when you screw up, if you just accept that and own it, you can go a long way with people. I've tried to improve on that in my own life and in my own relationships. And I really think it's time for us, when it comes to where we do well, yes, let's tell that story. Let's talk about the great work the people who work for us do. But where we need to do better, let's also just acknowledge that and not tell people that everything's great. We can do a better job clearing the snow. We're a big Canadian city with 7,000 to 8,000 kilometers of roads, and we're not moving fast enough. We're not doing a good enough job. So let's set our standards higher and acknowledge that we've got a long way to go till we get there. And then most importantly, do the work to arrive there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Speaker, and I have a motion. Is it going to be displayed?
Okay, the motion is on the screen.
Great. So my motion simply requests the General Manager, Transportation Services, to conduct a jurisdictional scan of relevant cities and how to leverage AI and machine learning in cloud-based systems to improve snow clearing. You can read the rest of it. So really my motion is, how do we move the conversation towards something that is more effective? And as my colleagues who were with me in Taipei discovered, a lot of cities are far more advanced than Toronto in using artificial intelligence and machine learning on how they deliver municipal services. And I think, given the experiences with the snow clearing, this is an area that Toronto could probably adopt some best practices from cities around the world. And I just want to read something I pulled off the internet from American City and County on other cities that are using AI for their snow clearing. The importance of leveraging AI and data technology in snow removal strategies cannot be overstated. Traditional methods of snow management often rely on predetermined routes and schedules, which may not always align with the dynamic nature of winter storms. By incorporating AI and real-time data analysis, cities can adopt a more responsive and adaptive approach to snow removal. One of the key advantages of AI-powered snow removal systems is their ability to learn and improve over time. Machine learning algorithms can analyze historical data on snowfall patterns, traffic flow, and equipment performance to continually refine and optimize snow removal strategies. This iterative process of improvement ensures that cities become increasingly adept at managing winter weather events, ultimately leading to safer roads and more resilient communities. The technology also addresses a critical safety concern for both snowplow operators and other road users. By reducing the number of stops and starts required at intersections, this system minimizes the risk of collisions and improves overall traffic flow. This enhanced safety aspect is particularly crucial during severe weather conditions when visibility may be limited and road surfaces are treacherous. So I think we have a lot of learning to do in this field. And I was listening very intently to Barbara Gray and Vince's answers. And one of the things that really stuck out to me is that we don't use technology and artificial intelligence consistently. We are piloting it, but it really should be baked into the fabric of how we do business. If Toronto, one of the other things that we learned from Taipei is, if you want to be a city that welcomes innovation, the city itself has to be innovative. And if we're not using these type of technologies to adapt some of the problems that we're facing, it's very hard to convince the rest of the world to come here and do business, that we're a city that's open to innovation, new technologies, and new and better ways of doing business. So thank you very much.
Councillor Pasternak.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I will be brief. This was discussed at the Infrastructure Environment Committee, and I'm going to use the first part of my speaking time to read the motion that I moved there that is not on the floor here. Direct the City General Manager, Transportation Services to include in the upcoming 2025 Annual Winter Maintenance Report to the Infrastructure Environment Committee a review of current bylaw provisions for snow clearance by institutional business and private properties on the public right-of-way and their responsibilities regarding moving snow onto city streets, with the report to include recommendations for any necessary changes to bylaws that will improve sidewalk accessibility during winter snow events. Now, I've seen some of these motions coming here. You're going to tie up staff and their teams with hundreds of hours of work to produce reports where we already know what the outcome is. What we have to do is create a bigger team. And the way we create a bigger team is to put more obligation on the private sector or public institutions that are in the public right-of-way to make sure that they can carry some of the burden and some of the responsibility in making the sidewalks and pathways adjoining their property their responsibility for clearing. Now, currently, they're supposed to clear the first 2 centimeters. Well, that just won't work in most snowstorm situations. The 2 centimeters fall very quickly. Even if they do clear that away, then the city has to go in there and expend enormous resources cleaning the sidewalks fronting the private sector. So bylaw review is certainly one route to go. Education. We must make sure that these institutions know their obligations. I can't tell you how many complaints I get from parents of school-aged children who cannot easily access the school because the snow is not properly cleared. And yet those schools blame the city for not clearing it when it's obvious in our bylaws that schools are supposed to clear the sidewalks and pathways leading to them, including the ones on their property. Enforcement. There is enforcement. It's clearly from the answers we received. It is part of the snow operations approach in making sure that those who are non-compliant be given a warning and told to clear their site. We need to beef up enforcement, make the consequences more severe, and make sure people understand what their obligations are. The next set of micro snowplows that we buy, which I'm sure will be more than $100,000 each, we need a better warranty program. For that equipment to be dated now after I think 7 years or 6 years, when we had a couple of winters where we really didn't even use them, I think that's equipment at $100,000 each. I don't think we're getting value. And I would touch on another matter. It's remote working. And in crisis, in snow emergencies, supervisors, senior management should be out in the field, working in their various quadrants, out of the home, and supervising the teams. The motions are all there to review the contracts, to make sure that our suppliers, our subcontractors do better. But the bottom line is this is a seasonal requirement where these contractors are calling people in on a needs basis. And you can't expect AAA gold-plated service when you're running an industry on that basis. Now, you could say, well, look, why don't we insource it? You're going to have to pay those people year-round. So your $100 million budget is going to go to $250 million. So the bottom line is there is work to do. I think staff did the best they could with the suppliers we have. We pay a lot of money for them. They must do better. But at the end of the day, we had a very large snowfall. There were weaknesses. There's work to do. But I did want to thank the senior management for getting us out of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Ainsley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't have any motions to move. I will be supporting Councillor Fletcher's motion. And I think back in time when we first looked at awarding these contracts, I spent a lot of time doing research and phoning municipalities across Canada, talking with different politicians, talking with snow removal companies that did the work in other municipalities across this country. And when I vaguely explained to them what the contract looked like and what we were trying to achieve, what our current system looked like, and they by and large said, I got wows, I got you're nuts, I got it'll never work, your problems will be endless. And where we are today, I think that's all come to fruition. And as some of us have said here, we want a system that works better. We want to get to a better system. I do too. One of the biggest problems I have is my town hall meetings, trying to talk to residents, and the number one issue is snow complaints, consistently, right through the winter. It's, sidewalks not being done properly, snow being left in front of driveways, windrows. I have, here we are in the largest city in Canada. When we plow our sidewalks, the bridges get done last. And I, more often than not, after a snowstorm for days, have to look at children trying to go across bridges on Lawrence Avenue and Kingston Road and Morningside, trying to go to school, walking into the face of oncoming traffic because they can't walk on the sidewalks. You look at chart number 2, table number 2, 311 winter service requests. So it has ward by ward stats from 2022 and 2025. If you look at a comparison of each year by each ward, of the 25 wards, there's only 5 wards on that chart where over the course of 3 years, snow removal service got better. There was less complaints to 311. One of the things that I always talk about with my residents when they say, Councillor, why is the sidewalk snowplow removal so bad? And I used to talk about the fact you had a 3-year contract or a 4-year contract, and if the company was brand new at it, the damage done to the boulevards was usually the worst in the first year, and then the second year it got better, and the third year was great, and if the company won the contract, there was very little damage. But this is the opposite. We're not getting better. Our 311 complaints are going up, and they're going up consistently across the city. And there's not one of us here today that's gotten up and said, snow removal overall in my ward was amazing. We had over half of this council getting up and asking questions and concerns and issues. So, when I look at that in the number of years I've been here, the number of councillors that are getting up with complaints and talking about the problems in their ward, and it seems pretty consistent across the city. If you're in Etobicoke, downtown, or Scarborough, the complaints all seem to be consistent. So I hope we can keep moving forward, find the best way forward, and deliver a service that our residents want, need, and ask for. And that goes across all programs. This is one of the very few ones where it's getting worse and it's not getting better as the contract keeps going along. So I'm going to support Councillor Fletcher's motion. I hope we can keep moving this forward and deliver a program that our residents deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a motion. Staff could help me put it on the screen. In my ward, as I know in many of my colleagues' wards, we have many residential streets that do not have sidewalks. And as we've heard today in great detail, one of the biggest challenges with the snow clearing efforts this past winter, and I hope the winter is almost behind us, is the safety concerns that were created as a result of our response. So the motion reads that City Council requests City Manager and the General Manager, Transportation Services, to review the current guiding principles and priorities for when snow clearing and removal is undertaken on residential streets with no sidewalks, in comparison to when snow clearing is undertaken for sidewalks, to determine if the guiding principles and priorities for those streets should be enhanced in consideration of pedestrians. Thank you to my colleague, Councillor Holiday, for the catch around the need to make sure we're clear about which aspect of the snow operations we're referring to here. And again, we have many small children, elderly and otherwise, in my community and at the city, in the city at large, who do not have the luxury of sidewalks in front of their homes, which do get priority for clearing and are dependent on walking on the roadway, which can be, of course, a big challenge and concern for pedestrian safety. So that's my motion. I hope colleagues will support it. I hope it will have a positive impact, not just in my ward, but in others that are impacted. And I also just wanted to speak briefly to acknowledge my colleagues for their motions as well, which I will be supporting, particularly Councillor Meyer's motion around looking at the implementation of AI as part of our systems. We know as a city we are growing by 25%, our pressures are endless, and our resources are finite. We have a structural deficit here, and I do believe that the best way to serve our residents is to lean into innovation and see what we can do to ensure we are delivering efficient and effective service to residents to the best of our ability with the finite resources that we have. I do think technology and AI is an important path forward, and we've got lots of work to do in that area, but I do think transportation services and winter clearing may benefit from that direction. So thank you, colleagues. Those are my comments.
Members of council, we want to get the agenda completed tonight, so maybe we can rush it a bit. Councillor Chang? Come on, guys. We want to get this done.
I have a motion.
Maybe if you speak, maybe a few comments briefly.
So my motion is just to include a report back that is already happening with the annual winter maintenance report, so that we have a report back on the jurisdictional scan. I think from our visit to Taiwan, we realized that there's so much that we can learn when we cast our eyes to places outside of where we live. And so I hope that we can have a fulsome analysis of what is happening, including how AI and machine learning is being incorporated, because technologies are being developed rapidly. And I think that as a city, we should be at the front and not at the back of how these technologies are implemented.
Okay,
so
thank you.
I hope that we will have a good report in 2025 annual maintenance report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, let's just try to... Councillor Candeval.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and through you. I want to appreciate this program and the review that we're undertaking. The timing of what transpired following our budget approval, I think, played an opportunity where residents were very keen to share their frustration in relation to our property tax increase and the discrepancy they saw and experienced with service. So this review is incredibly important, and I know residents are looking for better service and our approach going into next year, particularly where they've seen discrepancy in how our neighborhoods have been serviced. And I think that's a key part of what I'm looking for in the review that comes later this year, is how we're ensuring that service delivery is uniformly delivered and we're not seeing discrepancies in how neighborhoods are treated, as well as how the mechanism, the approach of thinking we're approaching seniors and those with disabilities or differently abled in the challenges they face. So I think there are going to be a lot of communities, neighborhoods, eyeballs on our review. We need to get it right for next year.
Thank you. Councillor Cole, quickly.
Yes, I went on a trip to Peru.
Congratulations.
They really have a great snow clearing program there, and we should adopt that Peru program. You know, I say the most dangerous things we have is when councillors go on trips, and they come back, hey, we need subway stations like Moscow, and we need snow clearing, and anyways, sorry to digress. I just want to say that My ward was one of the top 5 in terms of 311 calls, and I know one of the councillors stood up and said 311 calls are increasing. Well, they are, because we're pushing everybody to call 311. We never used to do that. We used to call the councillor, and the councillor would actually pick up the phone. Now we say, oh, don't call me, call 311. So watch out for those 311 numbers. They don't tell the whole story. I just want to say that obviously there were challenges, and I don't want to go, everybody's gone through all the things were wrong, we all know that. But you know, one of the root problems is when councillors get into micromanaging things that our professional staff is supposed to do. Some councillors are very good at understanding, like Councillor Peruzza. Ask him about snow clearing. He knows. He's a mechanic. He worked with big trucks. He worked on construction. He knows snow clearing. So I listened to Councillor Peruzza, and I've been at this for a while, but Councillor Peruzza knows from experience. But everybody else is a snow clearing expert. You know, the width of the blades, the horsepower. And then I remember, foolishly, I voted for it, was the sidewalk clearing. We were warned, this is not going to be as easy as you think. It doesn't happen. Councillor Holiday remembers that. It's not going to be easy. Oh no, we got to do the snow clearing because we got this mass email campaign that came to us. Oh no, do this, all the sidewalks. And everybody says, oh sure, how much is it going to cost? We don't care, just do the sidewalks. Then when the sidewalks don't get done to their perfection level, they complain like, what's wrong with the machines? What's wrong with our staff? The sidewalks are not cleared. Well, you were told it's not easy to do sidewalks, especially if you're down on Euclid Avenue and you're down on Montrose Avenue. It's hard to get those plows up, and then you've got garbage bins, you've got cars parked illegally, you've got... But anyways, now, in all due respect, Councillor Myers has got the answer. AI. Artificial intelligence. They're going to solve our problems. And by the way, Councillor Myers, you know where artificial intelligence comes from? Next door. University of Toronto, the Vector Institute. Go talk to him. You don't have to go to Taiwan to find out about AI. He won the Nobel Prize for AI. You don't have to go on trips. Go next door. Anyways, I just want to say that the part of the problem is that you can't ask staff to keep changing things. You can't keep on adding more aspects to it, pass another 20 motions, and expect things to be done automatically. It doesn't happen. And like there's a word about things happen. Snowstorms happen, will continue to happen. No matter how much AI, how much equipment, how much money, you're going to get the freak snowstorms that you can't control. And the phone is going to ring at your office. God darn it. Pick it up. Answer it. Go visit the person. Help them out. Get a neighbor to maybe, and then that's the last thing I'll say. At one time, people had the idea, in front of my house, I'm going to plow the sidewalk. But I'm going to sweep, I'm going to shovel. People used to do that. Now they say, oh, no, not me. The city's going to come and do it. Then they claim, then they phone the city, you haven't come. Then it's all the retailers on the main streets. I remember going into the bank on St. Clair, Councillor Bravo knows it. I went to the TD Bank and I said, you know, clean your damn snow in front of your sidewalk. With all your money, you can't shovel the snow. They said, no.
Thank you.
They said, you know what they said to me? They said, oh, the city's supposed to clean in front of the TD Bank.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, can you please try to be brief so we can get this over with tonight? We still have a lot of items. Oh, dear God. Councillor Peruzza. Councillor Peruzza, brief?
I don't know if I can really be brief on this one. I don't have a motion.
Oh, come on.
I normally have a motion here, and my motion would be to say, you know what? We really need to take a look at bringing a lot more of this work back in-house. I want to give a shout out to the staff and to our staff this year. Why do I want to do that? Because I think this year, as it relates to the contracts, and as it relates to snow clearing and removal, based on that snowstorm, they did a much, much better job than we've had in previous years. They did. The problem with snow removal here is we've given them certain tools. Yeah, I wanted to put a picture up at the end of my driveway. I don't want to digress, right? We've given them a shovel. A shovel. And we've said to them, now, irrespective of how much snow we get, go out and remove it. And the shovel we've given them can't do it. We've given them these contracts. We've given them a hybrid, sort of a, go out, hire these folks, wait on pins and needles in the works yard, hope to God that by November 15th, the machines begin to show up, and all these workers come to town from New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Alberta, Nunavut, wherever the hell they're coming from, right? On pins and needles, hope that they get there, and then say, okay, now you know what? Train them, teach them our road network, show them where they can pile up snow, where they can bank it, do all of that stuff, and then go clear the snow. And this is what we get. They bring X number of equipment. You get 12, 13, 1,400 workers show up. They show up with these machines. This year was so much better. They actually specified the type of machinery. They got these guys to buy new equipment, the right loaders and all of those things, and the rest of it. But is it all of it? No. The problem is this too. When you begin to get these big snowstorms, all these contractors swoop down on your streets. As best as they can, they start piling up snow everywhere, moving it around. Well, you can only do so many hours on one of these machines, and at some point, you got to go down. But the snow keeps piling up. Now, you can get second and third passes and fourth passes, but you're going to have to start paying dearly for that. In fairness to our staff, they've added our own employee base to that work. They've started to do that kind of on their own. Despite us, they've gotten machinery out there. I get it. You start piling up old machinery against snow you can't remove, you break the hydraulics. I remember seeing this one guy clearing the snow on my driveway in front of my house going back and forth, and I said, why does he keep going back and forth? Because, they're GPSed, right? They got to show they're moving around. So going back and forth. I drove down the street. He couldn't go any further. He couldn't clear the sidewalk. The snow had piled up. His little machine with his plow in his box couldn't move the snow. So he just kept doing the same stretch of sidewalk, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the worst of it is this, that once that snow piles up, because you don't have the right number of people in the machinery to do it when the big snowfall comes, and you don't have enough money to put to it to get them to go a second and third and fourth time, right? The worst of it is that then that stuff freezes. Now you need dump trucks, you need front-end loaders, you need bobcats, you need all that equipment you don't have. And you expect a miracle. That's what you expect, is a miracle. But those dump trucks, those drivers, that machinery that you now need to pick up the snow, haul it away in clumps because it's frozen, costs a great deal of money. And it's very slow. You need scrapers, loaders, trucks. But here's what bugs me about this whole thing, worst of all. For those years where we don't have a whole lot of snow, you got 12, 13, 1,400 people sleeping in your works yards.
Thank you, Councillor
doing
Pruitt.
diddly.
Thank you.
Right? We could put them to good use.
Okay, thank
what
you.
we need to do is bring more of this work.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Carroll does not want to speak. Councillor Chernus. I'll deal with it in July. Councillor, now please, I'm asking councillors just to be brief so we can get through this. This is agony. Just make it brief, please.
More diddly.
Thank you. I will be brief. I just wanted to do it's a very small motion amending Councillor Holiday's Part F to just add in Ward 15. You'll see it underlined on the screen above. And the reason for this is just that I had all of the same problems that Councillor Holiday has elucidated in his. And I had an unusual situation in my ward in that I have two different, there are multiple different types of contracts in my ward. So I think this is an important test one for us to look at and really learn from. And so I would just appreciate support on this. Thanks very much. That's it for me.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being brief. Now, the next one was Councillor Bradford, but I believe he's not here, right? Oh, Councillor Bradford, you're online? Go ahead,
Yep,
Councillor Bradford.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Speaker. I will be brief here. But I want to say, as one of the wards that was most impacted by the snow service, by the lack of removal, I heard from a lot of Torontonians. And one of the things they told me was City Hall needs to get serious and focused on the basics. They told me that in light of this administration's record-breaking tax increases, they wanted to see better services. And the city's snow response was unacceptable. We all know that. But I would say it comes down to a lack of leadership, a lack of urgency, a lack of coordination, and frankly, a lack of prioritization that forced residents to shovel themselves out of snow for weeks and weeks. And again, as Councillor Cole had pointed out, there was a time when there was that expectation, but the city wrapped their arms around the file and said, we were going to do that. But then, of course, the city failed to get that done. Toronto cannot be ground to a halt. We cannot be seized and snowed in and brought to our knees because of a snowstorm. I know it doesn't happen every year, but it happens often enough that we need to be better prepared and equipped. When we asked the staff questions today and tried to get clarity around our own in-house equipment and at what level it is intended to be able to respond, 15 centimeters. Well, there were numerous instances where that mark was not met, and yet significant equipment was sitting on the sidelines, not shoveling or removing the snow. I think that snow removal as a core service, like road construction, like transit, like keeping the parks clean and functional, these things continue to disappoint. And it all comes back to basic services that are not being delivered. The taxes have gone up 23% over the past 3 years, and we're not getting the basics delivered for people. This year, the contracts and the transportation department budget on this is $150 million for snow removal. That's up $20 million over last year. So I would suggest this is not a money problem. It is, again, a failure of leadership and a lack of prioritization of the basics from the administration. We've seen this buck passed around over and over again to the contractors. We've seen city staff called liars, thrown them under the bus. We blame the previous mayor who signed the contracts. And I would like to thank our colleague, Deputy Mayor McKelvey, for setting the record straight with her administrative inquiry. The current contracts were put in place to address various concerns raised by the Auditor General in 2020 and 2021. And this council's solution now is to just go back and do another review of the contract that is a product of a review. Pretty typical. The responsibility to enforce the contracts and to direct staff lies at the top. And yet I have still not seen the mayor take any accountability for this, for the lack of service, for the lack of prioritization and coordination. So here's the reality. The city allowed the snow to pile up across 4 separate snow events. That's the reality. Before operations were mobilized, starting to remove the snow 10 days after the snowstorm. That's how we got here. 10 days after that snowstorm, we finally heard from the mayor. She comes out and says it's going to be 21 days to clear the snow. And everybody joked that the snow would melt before that actually happened. But then it wasn't a joke. The snow melted. before we got it cleaned up. So it's a lesson for all of us. These are the basics that people care about. And if you're going to go out and rocket the tax bill, if you're going to raise taxes 23% in 3 years, you sure as hell better believe you got to deliver on the services that Torontonians count on in their lives. Thanks, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Okay, let's put the motions on the screen. I won't go to my desk to speak, but I just want to thank staff, and I know there's a lot of improvements that need to be done. There is room for improvement, so thank you to staff. So I don't have to go to my desk and speak. No. Okay, let's put the motions on the screen. Andy, we're trying to vote here. Motion by Councillor Cheng, it's on the screen. On favor, carried. Next motion. Motion 1 by Councillor Fletcher, on favor, recorded vote.
Councillor Thompson and Councillor Carroll, please. The motion carries. The vote is 22-1.
Okay, next motion. Motion by Councillor Chernis Lynn, on favor, carried. Okay, motion 2 by Councillor Holiday as amended. On favor, carried. Motion by Councillor Myers, on favor, carried. Motion by Councillor Morley, on favor, carried. Oh, we already voted? Oh, sorry. Item is amended. On favor, carried. Now, okay, Councillor Fletcher, you asked me a question before we broke. T 20.40, transit priority measures. Staff said that if you want, you can defer it. Okay, so Councillor Fletcher will move deferral. We'll put the motion on the screen. That's on T 20.40. There it is on the screen. On favor, carried.
I have Evans Avenue to release. Councillor Morley.
Which one is that?
EY 20.15.
Oh, 20.15.
Evans Avenue.
Evans Avenue, heavy trucks.
Yes.
Recorded vote.
Recorded vote.
Yes, because Councillor Holiday voted against it at Community Council.
Because staff said not to do it. They're going to go there anyway because it's not illegal.
Councillor Bravo, please. Deputy Mayor Malik. Councillor Bradford, if you're present and voting in the meeting, could you turn on your camera? Thank you. Councillor Perruzza, please. Councillor Perruzza, please. Thank you. Councillor Matlow, how do you vote, please? The item is adopted. The vote is 22-2.
I'm deferring it till April. Yes, staff have kindly prepared my deferral motion.
CC 28.7. Yeah. Oh, okay, there's the motion, CC 28.7. Councillor Fletcher's deferring. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Fletcher, you have more?
Yes.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Full of releases. The Ontario line, TE, whatever it is, 20.55, I think. And members' motion.
T 20.55?
Yes, that, and the other one that.
Okay, hold on. Are you releasing that one?
Yes. No, I'm deferring that. And MM 28.28. They're deferred.
Just one sec.
And the staff have it.
Yeah, yes. T 20.55, Councillor Fletcher is deferring. And as well as MM 2828.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. On favor,
And
carried.
then I'm very happy to release MM.
Okay, hold on.
Sorry.
And on MM 2828. We have to put that on the screen. Just hold on, Councillor.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, it's on the screen. On favor, carried. Okay?
Yes.
Is that it, Councillor Fletcher?
One more. I'd like to release MM 28.51, which is the fence. It's the don't fence me in motion.
The what?
The fence motion, MM 28.51, Councillor Cheng's. I think we've got, she has her motion, quick release. What? No?
Number issue.
What's Jag yelling about?
Oh.
Yes, I have a motion.
Okay, Councillor Fletcher, you're releasing
I'm
MM?
releasing that because Councillor Cheng has her motion and we've all agreed on that, so she's going to move that motion on MM 28.51, Speaker.
Okay. Councillor Cheng, the motion is on the screen from Councillor Cheng on MM 2851. On favor, carried. Okay, there's too much noise here. Councillor Moyes, Councillor Pasternak, I can't hear. Okay, so on the motion, amendment by Councillor Cheng, on favor, carried. Item is amended, on favor, carried. Yeah. Yes?
May I rise on a...
Okay, please, Councillor Perruzza, I can't hear.
Madam
Enough. Okay, Councillor Matlow.
Thank you. I just want to rise on a momentary point of privilege. And if I may have your attention, there have been a few times this has happened, and I noticed that it happened the last time that Councillor Cheng stood on her motion when she was trying to submit it onto the agenda, that before she was even able to, even the ability to speak to it because it wasn't on the agenda, a number of people kind of jumped on her figuratively and sort of saying things that were unfair, and there was an attitude that I just think we can do better on, and I want Councillor Cheng or anyone to be able to feel comfortable to stand up on their motion and just know that there isn't going to be a lot of people screaming at them when they do that. So please take it in the spirit in which I say that I want Councillor Cheng to feel comfortable to move something without being ridiculed while she's doing it. We can debate the motion once it's on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. What is going on? Councillor Carroll, Councillor Peruzza, what's going on? There's all this screaming.
Yeah, there is.
They're getting ready for vacation.
Yeah. Councillor Cole, you have a quick release?
I just want a quick release with just a couple of words, if that's possible. I have a motion on, for quick release is 2025 EC 18.2.
Okay, what's happening here? No, but there's everybody's
release
talking.
Me. Come on.
No, Councillor Cole, it's not you, it's Councillor Pasternak that was there. Okay, EC 18.2, upper business BIA, right?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
So you can see the motion that's before you. It's just about creating the new Upper Avenue Business Improvement Area. And I just want to thank all the volunteers who were involved in getting this underway. And we had an overwhelming vote in favor of it. But one of my motions says to just ensure as we try to expand the BIAs, we're going to do another 40, that we look at the way that the information is given out to people to vote, because the vote goes to the landlord. Sometimes the business owner doesn't get it, so we've got to fix that. That's what I've got in here, because rightfully so, there's some people who are confused about the process. But we're going to try and do our best to work with everybody, and we've got a good group of volunteers there in the Upper Avenue, and we're creating one of the first BIAs in a long time here. So I want to thank everybody for being involved, caring, and for raising some good issues in the development of this new BIA in the Upper Avenue. Thank you.
On the motion, okay, we can put the motion on the screen. Motion by Councillor Cole on EC 18.2. On favor? Carried. Second motion. On favor? Carried. Okay, do we want to just adjourn now? Because everybody seems to be having all this discussion. No, Councillor Fletcher, everybody's walking around and having conversations. Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. How can we focus?
I would suggest a 5-minute.
No, but they're all standing there. Councillor Peruzza, they're all walking around.
Let me in the chair.
No, that's not the point, Councillor Fletcher. You're going around talking to everybody. CC 28.6. We're at that item now. Let's get on with it. Councillor Holiday, you held it down. Do you have questions? Oh, hold on. Did Councillor Cheng have a quick release? Sorry, Councillor Cheng, do you have a quick release?
21.3, 2810-2816 Bayview Avenue.
NY
21.3.
I just don't understand what, I can't hear you. NY 21.3?
Yes, 2810-2816 Bayview Avenue.
Okay, I got that.
Moving staff recommendations with amendments.
Okay, we'll show the amendment. Councillor Fletcher, can you please take your seat? Councillor Fletcher. It's not that I need a break. You need to sit at your chair. Okay. Councillor Cheng has the floor. Councillor Cheng, you have a motion on the motion on the screen.
Yes, that's
Go
my
ahead.
amendment.
Councillor Cheng?
And I'm grateful to be getting more visitor parking, because that is something that, as you know, is difficult in the suburbs. Yeah.
Okay, on the motion by Councillor Cheng, yeah, we'll put the first one up. On favor, carried. Okay, and the next motion, we'll put it on the screen first. On favor, carried. The item? Okay, now Councillor Cheng, you still have the one for NY 21.2, 104, 114 Finch. Are you releasing that one?
So I'm voting against it, and because they have not fulfilled what the community has asked for. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a quick item. Thank
okay.
you. Okay, so we'll go now to CC 28.6. Councillor Holliday, you held it down, the review of council remuneration. Okay, Councillor Holliday, questions? Councillor Holliday, can you put your name up, please? Councillor Holliday, questions?
Thank you, Speaker. I would just like to be clear, the report before us provides a cash assessment of the remuneration for councillors. It's different than total rewards. Is that correct?
Through the Speaker, yes, that's correct.
So a total reward, or conventionally speaking, everything that a councillor receives includes other things. For instance, we receive a pension.
Hard to hear.
We receive a pension, would that be correct? An OMERS pension?
That would be part of total rewards. Pension would be part of total rewards.
We also receive benefits.
Correct.
We also have a council policy that provides a severance payment for councillors.
Correct.
So those aren't included in the number that's before us, the salary, the current salary.
The current salary is cash only. So that includes base compensation. It does not include what you get in benefits. When in the chart, what we're recommending will include benefits, but the charted comments there are cash. The one comparator, though, is where we have had a table in there, is where some of the jurisdictions have paid committees, which the City of Toronto councillors do not.
Do we have an idea of what the total rewards value is for councillors currently?
Typically, you would take your base salary and add 30%. So the math on that. Base benefits are worth about 30% of a base salary.
Could you give me a number, what that is?
I have to add it up. Sorry, I stopped your clock. Okay. You done it?
Dr. Peruzza, please.
So that would take it to 172.9, but that's total rewards.
Total rewards, but if we wanted to tell people what the total value is that we take home, be it in cash or other, it was 172.
I think you have to break it up between cash and benefits and pension. They are very different things.
Understood.
So you don't get that amount of money in your bank account, no.
Understood. One other question. We have an executive compensation policy at the city.
Through the chair, we do.
What is the percentile that we use to fix that?
The percentile for executive compensation is 50th percentile, but I will add a caveat that the way we approach executive compensation and comparatives is quite different.
Thank you, Speaker. Those were all my questions.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To staff, can you reiterate for myself and my colleagues what the findings of the supplementary report were before us?
Through the chair, the overall findings of our report was that the councillors in the City of Toronto, in terms of their comparators for cash, come in at about 62% of their comparators as a major theme.
So we're basically towards the bottom of the pack. Is that a fair assessment?
Slightly above median.
Slightly above median. In terms of the comparators, when we looked at the size and scope of the workload for councillors here in the City of Toronto, what were those findings?
We'd have to go into the details. The size and scope, when we looked at the City of Toronto, we looked at things like the average number of constituents per councillor. One of our findings was that the City of Toronto has the lowest dollar amount for councillors per constituent in all of the 9 comparators that we looked at. The other finding that we had in this is that the city has not looked at councillor compensation in fullness really properly since 2006.
And based on the assessment and the comparators that were looked at as part of this review, what was the finding of staff that would be the appropriate level of compensation for councillors at this time?
It was decided back in 2006 that through council that we would look at the 75th percentile. I mean, it could be argued that we would be at the 90th percentile given our size and scope, but this is where we had put ourselves. When you change comparators, you can change where you fall in a pack, but we were very specific on doing our work around other municipalities that had similar kinds of work that our councillors do. And that's where we landed at the 75th percentile of that group.
So was there a final number that was arrived at in this report that was recommended for us to be thinking about as part of appropriately addressing the disparity in the compensation for councillors in the City of Toronto?
Yes, through the chair, through our work and then through a validation of a third-party Corn Ferry, we landed at $165,000 and change. That would take you back to January 1st, and then as we have in every year applied CPI, which varies, year to year, to that amount, that would take it up to about $170,000 and change.
Great. And this might be a bit of a dumb question, but we just heard a little bit about total rewards, and I think that's an important perspective to understand. But when it comes to limits and workplace environment for city councillors, is there any parameters, like in terms of caps on the amount of hours we work or the demands on our time as it relates to committee, agency board oversight, etc.?
Not in our findings, no.
Great. Do you think councillors get paid enough currently?
Is that a fair question? I don't know that I think I can say what we came out in our report was based on some evidence and third-party findings.
And the evidence, I think, is very clear for anybody who takes the time to review it. Fair?
Fair.
Thank you so much.
I think the staff could answer that.
Those are my...
Thank you. Councillor Myers, questions?
Thank you. Through you, Speaker. Can you think of, and this is to the Chief People Officer, can you think of any other public servant in the City of Toronto that has not received a raise since 2006?
I have been here for coming up 3 years, and being in that period of time and then looking at the evidence in history, no, I would say that is not the case.
That's not the case. So only councillors are the only City of Toronto paid employees, I don't want to use that word, but the only ones that get paid by the City of Toronto who have not received a raise since 2006. Since 2006, councillors have only received CPI. That is not the same as the City of Toronto employees. Yeah, okay. And what is the current salary of a city councillor?
The current salary of a city councillor today is $133,000 and change.
$133,000 and change. What would an equivalent job in the City of Toronto that would be making $133,000?
The equivalent job in the City of Toronto would be a manager, and that would be, the salary would be slightly below the midpoint of that range.
So like a manager of what?
A manager in recreation, a manager in HR, manager in finance.
So like a manager of a community center would make the same as a city councillor?
If they're in that range, yes.
Yeah,
Which is a level 8.
Do you think councillors have a lot of responsibility in terms of the complexity of the job, in terms of the budgets that we're overseeing, in terms of the wards that we're overseeing, that would justify a $133,000 salary?
If I were to look at compensation analysis, there is complexity in a councillor's job, yes.
Yes, there is complexity. When you did the analysis of other jurisdictions, were there other municipalities that would pay their councillors extra if they were, for example, the budget chief or the TTC chair or the chair of any other major committees?
Yes.
And do we do that in the City of Toronto?
No.
So you could be the chair of a committee, you could not be the chair, everyone's making the same amount of money.
Correct.
And was any thought given to moving to that type of model?
Our instructions were to look at basic compensation. I mean, that is something that could be looked at in the future.
Okay. And how long ago was this compensation report asked for by council?
My understanding was 2018 was the last time it was brought forward.
So 6 years.
6 years.
So is it reasonable to say that if it had been done in a reasonable amount of time, let's say not 6 years, that the amount of the recommended increase would be significantly less?
Absolutely.
So who dropped the ball on this one?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's hard.
So the city manager in 2018 was asked to report back. And so, you know, there were opportunities for the report to come forward. There were decisions made not to have that come forward. One of the things was the pandemic. And there was the specific decisions made not to bring it. And
Sorry,
in fact,
decisions made by whom?
Pardon me?
Decisions made by whom?
Decisions made by both the city manager at the time would have made those decisions in consultation with members of council.
So members of council?
So maybe the mayor, maybe members of council. I don't know.
Well, you have it right there.
I'm trying to go back in history to a previous city manager.
That's okay. So the previous city manager and the previous mayor decided not to bring the report back despite the fact that council had voted for it.
It sounds like the will of the room says that is the correct answer, councillor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Crisanti.
Thank you, Speaker. I should be pretty quick. I just want to go back a little bit in time. I think there was a period of time, and I don't recall how many years, that the base salary for councillors was not indexed. Do you happen to know when those years were, and how many years were not indexed?
Through the chair, councillor, since 2006, the councillor's salary has been indexed to CPI except for the years 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic.
What about 2011?
And 2011, my apologies, that year as well.
Okay, just want to make sure. That's it. So there are 3 years in total.
Yeah, correct.
All right. And would you, may take a bit of calculation, if those 3 years were indexed, what would the base salary look like today?
I can only estimate. I mean, if we were to look at an average
Roughly.
of 2%, add an extra 6% onto $133,000, whatever the math is on that.
So another
What is it?
7,000, 8,000?
140 something.
So it'd be just over 140. That would be the base salary today. And,
Approximately.
no, that's fine. Okay, now, do you happen to know why they were not indexed at that time?
I can't speak here personally to me on 2011. I do know that it was held back because of the pandemic in 2020 and 2021, as were non-union salaries during that time.
And was there any maybe consideration for bringing back, as part of the recommendation, maybe just an option where that the base salary would just be increased to include the indexing that did not occur in 3 of those years?
Through the chair, no, it was not, because what we did is a proper compensation evaluation, evaluating our councillor salaries at the 75th percentile versus the comparators that we had. So going to that other amount would have still left us quite a bit below the place that we were looking to get it at the 75th percentile.
All right, thank you, Speaker.
Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I'm just looking at a couple of things. And one is just the Corn Ferry report that you're discussing recommended increases to councillor salaries, did it not?
Yes, it did.
And it also recommended increases to the senior level of staff at the City of Toronto, correct? It was.
Through the chair, there were different exercises, but yes, it did land in that area.
Around the same time. So from 2019 to 2023, the CFO at that time had an increase of $71,000 to their salary. Are you aware of that? Is that merit increases or CPI or based on that report that we're talking about?
So 2019 to 2023 are different people in the role?
No. Sorry. Not according to the Sunshine List, it's not.
Okay.
But it's the same person.
The same person. It would have been evaluated through Corn Ferry as a CFO.
Thank you.
Not in relation to others.
So the pandemic was 2021. Did you say we didn't get an increase, CPI increase in 2021? Was it 2020 and 2021?
In general, I believe that's what happened. Councillor, need to map that against the work we did with Corn Ferry and when that actually happened.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about the increases. Can we confirm that there was no increase, supposed to be no increase in 2020 and 2021? Because you had mentioned we didn't get any CPI increases to the councillors.
Through the chair, what we did get in 2021, or 2020 and 2021 was pay for performance, but not a base salary change.
So the pay for performance, let's say for a former deputy city manager, 8% 2021 during the pandemic, and we had no CPI for councillors, correct?
Correct.
So I just want to go back. I'm quite concerned to hearing the city manager say that somehow that it was city councillors that asked that not be brought forward. Was it not the city manager and the mayor, Mayor Tory, who decided not to bring this forward, but proceeded with all these increases for senior staff at the same time? I don't care who answers that question, but I think that's what happened.
So it was a decision of the city manager, and it would have been taken in conjunction, I assume, with the mayor, yes?
With the mayor. So when somebody's salary from the pandemic 2019 goes up by almost $80,000, then that's merit and CPI increase. That be it for a former deputy city manager, corporate services?
I would have to go into the detail. Some of that could be evaluation of the role. It could be CPI or COLA, we call it, not CPI, and merit.
COLA.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the merit pay, all of those things. So I just want to be crystal clear that these recommendations were made by the mayor and the former city manager, the former mayor and the former city manager, for these increases for senior staff were done without coming to council, but the mayor, former, and the city manager, former, refused to bring the same recommendations from those who were asked to look at increases for councillor's salary to council prior to this time. Would I be correct to say that? Even though it was supposed to come here.
So this report is very late from when it was initially requested. I will say that one of the differences is the former city manager was given direction around the compensation of staff in, what year was that, 2022? And he was given delegated authority by council to go and address staff salaries. So I just want to clarify that.
But he was also given authority to look at councillor salaries.
Yeah, that predated that in 2018, yes.
That's fine. So that happened, but the other one didn't happen from the former mayor. A lot of the things we're doing here today, snow contracts, raises, and whatever the other one was that we had a long debate around. Oh, ferries. That's all from a different administration, different mayor. Thank you very much for clarification of this matter. I didn't mean to ask these questions, but after I heard that somehow councillors decided to do this, I thought I needed to ask those questions.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to speakers. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm just going to move receipt of the item. There's two parts to the question that's before us. Staff have provided some analysis. They have come back with comparisons of salaries in other jurisdictions and provided us a report. You can accept or not accept those. You can accept them on the logic or not as to whether you agree that the salaries are appropriate in the other jurisdictions. I guess the one difference in comparators is that the comparators aren't places that would otherwise compete for the candidates of the job, because we're elected within a jurisdiction, and it's pretty unlikely a councillor would be convinced to go and run in another jurisdiction. Which leaves the second question, is whether you accept the number or not, do you think it's appropriate to make a change? And I submit to council that it is not. I just believe that if we do this, it further erodes people's confidence in government, and I don't think that we should do it. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do have a recommendations. Actually, it's the staff supplementary recommendations, which I think we've all seen. I think the media have seen it. Everyone's spoken about it. So I'm really, we've been talking about this for a long time. As we know that council doubled in ward sizes in 2018. We did increase our staff budget, but council's salary remained the same. I was at FCM last week in Montreal, talking to my colleagues from across the country, and we're talking about this issue. Rory in Burlington, a city councillor, he makes $129,000, and the population of Burlington is 200,000 people. That's incredible. I was talking to the mayor of King City, and he called in for a council meeting. He said to me it's going to take about 10 minutes. I said, how's that even possible? He said to me that they have a committee of a whole, so they have conversations there, and then, at council, it just passes just like that. He went upstairs, came back 10 minutes later. I could not believe it. Here at our council, we're here for pretty much 3 full days. Starts at 9:30 in the morning. We're here till late at night. We have the largest transit system. We have, you name it. I chair Board of Health, the largest municipal health agency in the country. I think I was reading one of the media outlets, I think, listed how many committees and boards that various councillors in this chamber sit on. And my number is 25. And I went back and checked. What they didn't factor in was that I actually, if you go to the Board of Health, I chair the Budget Committee, I chair the MOH Performance Appraisal, and now I chair the Search Committee for the new MOH. I sit on FCM, and I sit on 2 committees at FCM. I sit on AMO. Now that Deputy Mayor McKelvey is elsewhere, I was just told that I'm the acting caucus Toronto chair. And when I flew back from Montreal, from FCM to AMO, I was given 30 minutes to prepare a presentation. So if you factor in all of those committees and boards, it was great. And thank you for calling in, from Montreal to AMO as well, Councillor Ainsley. And I did the calculation of all that. It's 31 committees and boards. That does not include the work that I do in my ward. It doesn't include the work that I do here, talking to staff and meetings and other things. The job I do is 7 days a week, 24/7. Earlier today, I think it was, I don't remember anymore, we had the firefighters in here, thanking them for, putting out fire 275 Bleecker Street. I was there all day with my team. A few months earlier, we had a fire on Howard Street. I was there with my team supporting community. So, again, this job is 24/7. I don't turn my phone up at night because I may get a call from the fire chief or the police chief or whomever. So again, I don't think the salary that's being requested here is unreasonable. I actually think it's quite reasonable in comparison to other municipalities, not only in Ontario, but across the country itself. So I do hope that we, as colleagues, support staff's recommendation. It's not my recommendation. It's the third-party assessment that is brought forth, and I'm just here to move it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carroll.
Okay. Thanks, Madam Speaker. So there are competing propositions here because I'm going to move a slightly different set of recommendations. But the reason I'm moving them is because there are two schools of thought in this room right now. And that is the only reason. I'm agnostic. I'm going to vote yes to both of them.
Hold on. Councillor Perruzza, please. I can't hear when you're mumbling. Okay, go ahead.
I really appreciate that, Madam Speaker, because I think you might want to listen to this. So I'm moving it only because I know there to be two schools of thought in this room right now. What I am moving is that we adopt tonight to move our remuneration to the 75th percentile as outlined in the report, and that the additional CPI increase that is recommended to be given us at that time be moved to January 1st, 2026. That's the only difference between the two. It changes the amount that would happen today, but by January 1st, 2026, you are where you are. Madam Speaker, the only other thing in the report that I wish I had the power to change is there's one recommendation that comes at Ms. Madigan Lee's report that says that at the beginning of next term, we should do another comparator study. That's the absolute wrong time to do it. The mayor has told us that she wishes that this was not only done by a third party, but decided by a third party. That is legislatively impossible. There is only one place that you can spend the funds of this council, and that's in this chamber. We've been down this road. We went down it in 2006. But if you want to remove yourself from this, you would return to the policy that a governance committee in 2006 designed, which was that we do that comparator study at the end of every term, and the sitting council adopts the wage adjustment based on the new comparator study for the next council. That's the only way that you can remove yourself from this responsibility that you're undertaking tonight. Legislatively and by law, that's the only way you can do it. I invite the mayor to find another way to do it, but as far as I know, any lawyer is going to tell her this is where the taxpayers' dollars get spent, in this chamber. Thank you. I just got a nod from the bench. And so, I'm not going to amend that tonight, because you know what? Council can figure that out later. We have lots of times. We could bring an amendment in 12 months from now, and we'll make that adjustment. That comparator study should be done at the end of the term. And as we're getting close to the end of a term, I think, I dare say if we make this adjustment tonight, we can probably suck it up and wait till the end of the next term and do the right thing then. But you need to do the right thing tonight as well. And here's what you're going to do. Let's be clear about this. Tonight, you are voting to go right on chronically underpaying yourselves. You are actually going to put up your hands, whether you pick my option or Councillor Moise's option. You're saying, don't ever pay me the full value of what I'm worth according to the best wage evaluator, Corn Ferry, in the country. We only want to be paid the 75th percentile. We want about 75% about what the best in the country says we're worth. And that's what we can do for the taxpayer, in appreciation of what people are struggling for. But at the end of the day, we're not getting any younger in this room, are we, Madam Speaker? Some of us might not be here next term. And these are hard times. These are desperately hard times. And we need the best in the city to want to join us in this chamber. If I'm not here, I hope I'm followed by someone brilliant and talented, much like the new councillors we got this time. But we're getting further and further away from the market. Do you really think you can attract the talent we attracted last time if we get worse and worse and worse? I don't. If we pay us at least 75% of what we're worth, we've got a ghost of a chance of populating this council chamber with people who can properly run this city and take it into the future for our children, for our grandchildren. But we have to be brave and we have to do it right now. And if we do, then I truly believe we've got to get back to that policy that Councillor Bussin back in the day, in the mayor's office that guided me through it. I was a first-term councillor and I was terrified. It was the mayor's office that held my hand
5 seconds.
through that time in 2006. And we got there. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Councillor Pasternak.
I'd like to call the question.
Thanks, James. Awesome.
19 years of debate is enough.
Councillor Fletcher, please. The motion to end debate carries. The vote is 15-7. The required 2/3 threshold has been met.
Put the motions on the screen. Okay, we have quorum. Let's put the motions on the screen, please. First motion by Councillor Holyday. Recorded vote.
Motion 1 does not carry. The vote is 5-18.
Okay, next motion. What? Yeah. Motion by Councillor Moyes, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Malik, please.
Councillor Crisanti, please.
Motion 2 carries. The vote is 15-8.
Yes, Councillor Carroll's motion is redundant. That's it for this item, right? Agenda, which is Councillor Candeval, you held, oh. It won't make a difference on the vote. Oh. Okay, Councillor Malik, if she wants to reopen recorded vote. This is to reopen. You know, this is why people should pay attention when we're voting rather than talk. No, seriously, Councillor Fletcher, sorry. Everybody's talking and nobody's paying attention, that's why. No, I don't have to stop it.
Councillor Crisanti, please.
The motion to reconsider the previous vote does not carry. The vote is 14-9. It's a 2/3 vote. It fails to obtain the 2/3 threshold.
Thank you. Let's move on with the agenda. EX 21.12, advancing the Tamil Community Center. Councillor Candeval, are you going to release it or what are you doing?
I'd like to speak to it.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And through you, I'll keep my remarks brief. I want to express appreciation as a City Councillor of Tamil Heritage for the work done by this council in the previous administration and the current to advance the Tamil Community Center. On behalf of the community, very appreciative of this work. And I also want to really clarify an important piece that this community center is going to be for everyone in the community. The proposed location, 311 Staines Road, is in Morningside Heights, an area that was built out 25 years ago without a community recreation center. And that has been a glaring gap for the community for more than 2 decades now. And I think it's important, though the name is Tamil Community Center, this will be open for all communities and offer programming for all. And this is something supported, as you may be aware, by both the federal and provincial government to the tune of more than $26 million. So my appreciation and gratitude for everyone pushing this forward and waiving the charges is deeply appreciated by the community. And I'd like a recorded vote on the item, Madam Speaker.
Recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Malik, please. Councillor Cheng, please. Councillor Matlow, how do you vote, please? Councillor Matlow, how do you vote, please?
We're in the middle of a vote.
The item is adopted unanimously, 22 in favor.
Okay, the next. Can I please have quiet? Councillor Peruzza. Okay, go ahead. Go. Okay, what's your point of order?
Speaker, earlier I berated Councillor Carroll. I want to apologize to her. She's got the sweetest voice, and I love hearing her. So I just want to hear her more often. All right. But I want to apologize for
Well,
having
first
done
of all,
that.
that's
Okay,
not a
thank you.
point of order.
No, but it was it's an apology. Really.
Okay.
And I feel it here, and I want
you know what?
I want to apologize.
This is why because we all get crazy in here. If you love her so much, go and hug her. We're in the middle of a council meeting. Our next, this is why we cannot extend council meetings anymore, because we become crazy. Okay, our next item, please. Our next item is EC 18.5, Toronto Community Housing Tenant Engagement System. Councillor Cheng held the item down, and I believe we have somebody from Toronto Housing been sitting here all day. Okay, so then Councillor Cheng, you should have told staff, he's been sitting here all day. Like, the CEO is sitting here all day because you held the item down. Is that fair? Like, this is crazy. Okay, Councillor Cheng, go ahead. We have to be careful when we hold items down, because the staff are sitting here waiting, and we're paying staff to be here. Okay, Councillor Cheng, go ahead.
I have a motion. This is towards strengthening tenant engagement. It's something that I saw in Taiwan 2 years ago, and I was encouraged to hear it is in fact something already on the radar at TCHC, and it's simply to explore the development of a tenant-focused mobile application that allows tenants to create and track maintenance work orders, receive real-time push notifications for important announcements, and access other features that can strengthen engagement, communication, and access to services. And as someone who previously served in a community housing neighborhood, I know that sometimes the phone call system to get work orders done could sometimes be difficult and frustrating, and I think an app can simplify and streamline that process, and hopefully there will be other tools to strengthen engagement. And I'm grateful for the input of TCHC as well as Housing Secretariat staff on this motion.
On the motion, on favor? Carried. Item is amended. On favor, carried. I apologize to staff that you had to sit here all day, but I hope you enjoyed it. Was it enjoyable for you? Sorry. Our next item is GG 19.27. Councillor Myers, you held the item down. Do you have questions?
I do have
questions. This is to
questions.
do with GFL.
Yes.
Okay, if you can put your name on the screen, please. Okay, Councillor Myers, go ahead.
So through you, Speaker, is someone from Procure? Oh, I see Ms. Sharkey there. So I'm just going to read an excerpt from the Auditor General of Ontario's 2021 report on GFL, on waste generally. So GFL, a waste management company, had 78 reported spills between 2016 and 2020. Although the Environmental Ministry staff noted that the company, quote, regularly contravenes the acts, regulations, and legal documents overseen by the ministry, end quote, the Environment Ministry continues to grant GFL new environmental approvals, allowing it to expand its operations. For example, the Environment Ministry found that GFL was contaminating surface water in the township of North Stormont by repeatedly spilling leachate, liquid passed through a landfill, at concentrations resulting 10% fish mortality, violating its environmental approval. The Environment Ministry also found that GFL was falsely reporting test results showing 0% fish mortality. Wow. So my question is, what kind of due diligence do we do on our suppliers when this kind of information is publicly available?
Through the chair. So the due diligence will be slightly different depending on the solicitation model. In this instance, it was an RFQ, which means we would have checked for mandatory requirements, minimum standards of certification, qualifications, experience. At that point, once they've met all of the minimum standards that we've laid out in our template, which again, minimum standards are the ones that we are setting up. So it's not baseline, it's what we need as our minimum. So once we've done that and a proponent has been selected, we would go through the general review of validating the information, as well as doing a fair wage check, ensuring insurance is in play, and that kind of information that we would follow up on. We would not dig into this type of history unless, again, it was an evaluated component and or there had been some illegality or something against the supplier code of conduct, which we would then question.
So the Auditor General did find that the company had been violating, quote, regularly contravenes the acts, regulations, and legal documents overseen by the ministry, end quote.
Okay.
So is that not something that Toronto staff should be considering when deciding whether to award a contract like this?
It is something that can be considered, yes.
Was it considered?
In this instance, again, we considered what was in the RFQ.
I just want a yes or no answer, please.
Okay, so those exact items would not have made their way into the RFQ, no.
Did you know about this?
We were not aware. We don't deal with them as procurement, as PMMD. We don't monitor that level when it's not our own contract.
If staff was aware of this, would staff have still awarded the contract to GFL?
I have to say, since it is not from our own performance contract, we would not have a method to not award based on the contract format or the solicitation format.
So staff still would have awarded the contract if it had known that this company was a repeated environmental offender?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, council awards contracts. So it would have been council would have had to decide.
Whoa. Okay, let me rephrase. Would staff recommend that council award this contract if it had known this information?
So what we would have had to do, again, we're in a contract A model. So therefore, we would bring a recommendation.
Would staff still have brought the recommendation to council if it had known that this company was a repeat violator of our environmental laws? It's a yes or no question.
Yes.
Yes. Is that consistent with all of the policies, all of the virtue signaling that council does and the City of Toronto does on that we are an environmental leader, we care about social justice, we care about people living next to these dump sites? Is that consistent with those values and our own policies?
Again, we can only
That's
evaluate.
a yes or no question.
So we can only evaluate what's in the document. So I don't know if that's a yes or no.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we're back to the same thing with procurement. And Ms. Sharkey, you are taking the advice of staff. And
Pardon?
I just want to understand the procurement process. Are you doing all the research? Are you doing all the technical piece? Or is that coming to you and you're preparing the document to go on a REBA and then recommending the low bid?
Through the chair, through the speaker, we work closely with the divisions, so we get that type of technical information from divisions on what they want to consider as part of their evaluation, as part of their award criteria. We work with divisions for that.
So basically, the division provides you with information to put in an RFP or any other thing, and then you let the RFP, you get the results back, and any questions about it technically is answered by the division, not yourselves, and then you award that based on that previous work, correct?
Correct.
So I think the questions really are to solid waste. Is there any moment where you're looking at a vendor and their record, and this is now a public record that Councillor Myers has found, a public record on environmental practice and having been found to have violated a number of environmental matters. So at what point do you look at the vendor and give that information to anybody? Or do we need to make instructions for that? I'll ask the city manager next.
So through the chair, we'd be directed through council policy and procurement policy in setting up those types of parameters for any of our contracts, and that would be more than just the solid waste contracts. That would likely have to be citywide contracts. For us, we look at the ability for a service provider to continue to do the work, making sure that they have the health and safety standards, the CVOR ratings,
right,
etc.
So the fact that the Environment Ministry had allowed repeat offenders to have that many reported spills in 4 years, that would not be on your radar? Do you not have any way that you're tracking any of the vendors? Or City Council didn't ask you to track vendors and their performance?
So through the chair, the division does not track vendors' external performance. We track vendors' internal performance and monitor that during the years that they're under contract and then through our closeout process. But we do not go out into the market and determine how a company is performing outside of the city.
So the fact that this is a public record doesn't impact you. Are you concerned there were 78 reported spills between 2016 and 20? They regularly contravene the Act, regulation, legal documents that are overseen by the ministry in their solid waste operations. Does that concern you when you hear that?
So through the chair, I'd have to understand exactly, I need to know more information on how they're contravening the Act. There are a number of instances within any municipal context, especially solid waste, where there are spills, there's potential environmental challenges that are immediately remediated by a contractor or municipalities.
How about that they falsely reported test results, that the Auditor General found they falsely reported? Does that concern you?
It does.
It does. So we've now awarded a contract, 136, is it $136 million that we've awarded?
So the one before you is approximately that value, yes.
And what happens if we turn that down?
So GFL was the only bidder that met specifications on this contract, and I'd have to request legal's advice on next steps if this is not awarded today.
Would we have to go on camera and find out what would happen if we turn that down?
I'd defer that to legal services.
Pardon me?
I'd have to defer that question to legal services.
To legal services?
Correct. I'm in no position to answer
Is
that question.
that something that we can do? Just asking the speaker. Speaker, I know you're listening.
Yeah.
That, what are the implications if we turn down this because only council can award it, and apparently council didn't tell you we were worried about environmental records. So should council get worried about environmental records, what would happen if we turned this down now? Do we need legal advice to find that out?
Yeah, could we ask legal?
Madam Speaker, I will have to look into this one because I don't know a whole lot about this call. So I would ask that you hold it down so I can speak to someone about it. I'd need more detail.
You got a holdover clause?
I'd have to check with procurement on the validity date on the contract.
She's right beside you.
Yep, absolutely.
Correct. We would have to verify the validity date. If we're still within that period, yes, we can hold.
So I guess we better find that out, Speaker. It's easier to hold it, defer it, and let the city solicitor look into it, if we can do that. Otherwise,
Go to the next item then. So now we'll go back to NY 20, Oh, I understand that Councillor Cheng wants to reopen NY 21. It's not ready yet? Okay. So NY 21.2, 104, 114 Finch Avenue. Councillor Cheng.
I don't have questions of staff. I just want to speak. Great. So this is an application that's for something that's at Willowdale and Finch Avenue, and staff have a general rule that they don't want buildings to exit onto Main Street. So the developer created a plan to exit this development onto Willowdale Avenue, which then exits into a turning lane that has a bike lane that's right near an intersection that's also only bi-directional. So there's just many conflicts that can occur in this situation if people try to cut across, to turn left, to go eastbound on Finch, or when people are turning left into this community, into this building, they will stop all the traffic that's right above the intersection. So I don't think it's a good plan. The developer did try and submit a drawing to propose a version that exits onto Shepherd, but then they eliminated the setbacks that were already there. So I don't believe it was a genuine effort. And the community has many concerns about what this will do to the traffic. And this is an example where staff have an opinion about traffic, and then there's the lived experience of the people who drive the street every day and the impact of that development. So I will be voting against this development, and I hope that you will support my local community. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Cheng, you're just moving? Oh, no.
Yes, staff have asked me to move a motion on this, that council adopt the following recommendations in the supplementary report, which deletes North York Community Council recommendation 2 and replaces it with the following, which essentially approves the staff recommendations to accept this. Councillor Cheng and I had a really good and robust conversation about this application, and I understand her frustration. I do. Willowdale is a fairly busy street. However, the other option is to have the access onto Finch, which is a much busier street. So the traffic impacts of putting the exit on Finch would be much worse. And that's why staff recommended the Willowdale entrance. It's imperfect. It's absolutely imperfect. But if we join Councillor Cheng in voting against this today, what happens is we go to the OLT, the exit will still be off Willowdale, and the developer will be in a position for what they call a de novo hearing. This is happening more and more often at the OLT now, where the developer says, fine, you wouldn't approve mine, I'm adding 5 more stories. I've literally got one of those on Bloor. City of Toronto turned down an application, and the applicant went to the OLT and is now asking for something even bigger. And they could very well get it with this government who is appointing members to that tribunal. So as frustrating and difficult as it is for Councillor Cheng, the best outcome for her community is that we support the staff recommendations. That's hard to say, but that's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Can we hold this
Thank
for a
you.
second? I just want a clarification.
Pardon? Okay. Oh, I just hit my knee. I banged it into So what's happening? Okay, Councillor Perks, your motion. On favor? On favor? Recorded vote? Recorded vote.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
Councillor Matlow, Councillor Crisanti, please.
Councillor Myers, please. Motion 1 carries. The vote is 15-7.
Item is amended. On favor? Carried. Do we have the item for Councillor Cheng for NY 21.3? She wanted to reopen the item because there's a technical amendment. Okay, Councillor Cheng, it's on the screen.
I'd like to reopen NY 21.3 for a technical amendment, please.
On favor? Carried. Okay, if we can put the technical amendment on the screen. There it is. On favor? Carried. Item is amended. On favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now our next item. Our next item is road alteration for King Street East at George Street. Councillor Holliday, you held the item down. Do you have questions to staff? No? And you had the staff sit here all afternoon. Okay, you want to speak? Okay.
I promise I did ask staff my questions earlier. Speaker, I just wanted to make sure that I pointed out to council what was in this report. This report proposes to close one of the lanes of King Street East by filling in the sidewalk and filling in the lane. I think that's a big deal. There's a number of factors in this report. One of them is that they would like to extend the sidewalk from about 2 meters to 2.5 meters. And the rationale is that there's a really big building being built there. And it's my view that I don't think we should be closing lanes of the road. To have a wider sidewalk to facilitate a new building, they can push the building back. So I can't vote for this, and I just want to make sure members understand what's in front of us, because I think it's important, because King Street East is a very important street. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll have a recorded vote on T 20.31, recorded vote.
Councillor Ainsley, please, and thank you.
Councillor Cherneslin, please, and Councillor Crescenti, please.
The item is adopted. The vote is 16-3.
Thank you. Our next item is MM 28.22. Councillor Cheng, you held the item down. It's improving Toronto's public washrooms. Is there a reason that you held it?
Yes, I have a motion.
Okay. Does the staff have your motion?
Yes, it is. It's been pre-circulated. So this is to include pursuing the installation of wall-mounted toddler seats and new city washrooms where change tables are installed, and the development of a family-friendly washroom standard. I recently traveled in Taiwan and previously went to Japan and saw these seats everywhere, and I can say when I was a mom of a toddler, when I had a bathroom that had one of these seats, I had a huge sigh of relief, because my child could be securely in a seat while I did my business, and I didn't have to worry about my child touching everything in the bathroom, because we know how clean public bathrooms are, or trying to crawl out of the stall. It's very stressful as a mom taking care of little kids can be like wild chickens sometimes. So I hope that our city can set a new standard, a family-friendly standard that I see is implemented across Asia, and I think it will make us a more welcoming and accessible city for families. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes, did you go on vacation too?
I'm here, Madam Speaker. I do have a motion on item 1F as well. Just want to make a slight change and just include the word gender inclusive after the words washrooms. Simple change.
Okay. So on the amendment by Councillor Cheng, on favor, carried. Amendment by Councillor Moyes, on favor, carried. Item is amended, on favor, carried. Our last item is MM 28.44, Toronto Community Housing Board. Councillor Holiday held the item down. Councillor Holiday, do you have questions?
So I just wanted to know if staff could talk to us a little bit about what the implication is across the other boards, because this has come before us without a staff report.
To the Speaker, this motion is just specific to one, so the change would be applied to TCHC, but not beyond that.
So we have a number of boards, and sorry, thank you, Councillor Fletcher, it's late. We have a number of corporations and external agencies that have boards, that have people serving on them, some with remuneration and some not. Have we revisited the policy lately? How do we understand whether or not the suggested value here is appropriate for this board?
The last time the policy was updated was 2006. The policy does outline some criteria and parameters for council to consider in this topic of remuneration in terms of responsibilities and scope of work and size of responsibilities are outlined in the policy.
How do we know that the numbers that are before us are the right number?
Staff have looked at other corporations. For example, Create.to is one that was looked at as well, to look again at responsibilities and size and scope in terms of landing at a potential number. So this was looked at that as part of the comparison.
Sorry, this is very important because the language you suggest, did staff look at this? And is there a body of work behind the numbers that are before us? It's coming to
Yes.
members' motion, so you understand
Yeah.
my,
To the speaker, we did. Staff did look at it, and we did look at the numbers, and we did look at other corporations to get a sense of what those numbers were like at other corporations as well.
so while not in a staff report, are these numbers the recommendation of staff?
Through the assessment that staff did, we are supportive of what's put forward.
Okay, well, that's very helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's all my questions, Speaker.
Councillor Fletcher. Of TCHC is about $13 billion, I think? Yes? Who's answering that?
Through the Speaker, yes, operating budget close to 1.2 operating capital on an annual basis, but overall value is approximately $13 billion.
$13 billion. And not only is staff I asked staff to bring the remuneration of these board members up to the level of other corporate boards of this nature. Is that not correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Just making sure that Councillor Holyday heard my question. Councillor Carroll, I'm going to stop because I'm actually asking these questions for you, Councillor Holyday. That the remuneration of these members of this board had not been increased. And I asked you to please get a motion that would bring their remuneration to the same level as Creatio, Toronto Hydro, all of our corporations that have billions of dollars worth of property and assets. Is that what I asked?
To the speaker, that's correct. That's what you asked, and that's the assessment that staff did.
And this is your assessment. I didn't put these numbers in. You brought this back with these suggestions because it's not exactly Toronto Hydro, but it is somewhere in the neighborhood of more than $20,000 for the chair of a $13 billion corporation.
To the speaker, that is correct.
I'll just wait. You could just hold my time for a second because these are questions that Councillor Holyday wanted the answer to, so I'm going to make sure he's able to hear them. So it's a member's motion that I asked you to prepare to make sure that people that are contributing to a $13 billion corporation have a proper remuneration. Would you agree with that?
To the speaker, that's correct. We would agree with that.
And that is, and when I'm very clear about Toronto Seniors Corporation, it is a corporation, but all of the responsibilities for IT, for HR, for legal, for capital, for everything rests with Toronto Community Housing and its board, correct? I'll ask Mr. Sharma.
Through the Speaker, that's correct.
So there should be no intention to say, okay, it's got to be the same at the smaller corporation.
Through the Speaker, that's
That
a fair
would be
assessment.
that would not be actually fair to the people that heavy lift. For how many tenants? 94,000 tenants, 1,500 buildings, $13 billion, many issues, correct?
Through the Speaker, that's correct.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Holyday, did you want to speak?
Just briefly. Thanks, Speaker. I will ultimately support this motion, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to ask the staff the questions. My only complaint, and I don't mean this as a criticism to Councillor Fletcher, who's taken the time to put the motion together, is that I just don't care for this model of governance where we bring this forward and I'm put in a position that I have to go and seek the advice of staff on the floor or the answers of staff on the floor. I would prefer to have something of this importance to come through a process with a report because I just think it's more transparent, and this has implications beyond this corporation and it could influence changes in others, and understanding all that is important, and I think that's just our job as council. I've heard information here tonight which supports including the advice of staff on these numbers, and I'm satisfied with that. And I do think that the people that give their time for the function of these really important corporations should receive appropriate compensation to ensure that we can have candidates that can function on these boards, and they are paid accordingly. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher to speak.
Very much, and Speaker, I know you've been on this board and others have been on this board to see the hard work that's done by the public members, and there to see that the chair of Hydro is making a $90,000, the chair of the Police Services Board $90,000, the chair of Create TO $70,000 at being the chair, and the chair of a $13 billion corporation with 90% rent geared to income tenants, $20,000 for the work that they're doing, that just didn't seem right. So I apologize, Councillor Holiday, I didn't take this through a long kind of thing, but I felt that really and truly these folks do need to get the remuneration that they deserve. And there was always kind of a something, well, those people are just looking after poor people. It's not really that important. I think that we understand how important Toronto Community Housing is. We are the landlord. We are the shareholder. So everybody that has a shareholder direction and everyone has a board with a shareholder direction, they certainly need to be treated in a positive way and in a way that respects their incredible contribution. This is not an easy corporation to be on the board. State of good repair, falling apart, downloaded from the province, 90% rent geared to income, many social problems. We saw about the fire. We're looking at issues here, and I know that Mr. Baird is gone, but with the fire chief, all of the fires and the electric vehicles that are parked there, it is a very difficult place to oversee, and I would really appreciate the support of everyone here to make sure those good residents are feeling appreciated by City Council for the incredible amount of work that they do here on this board. Thank you.
Thank you. So on the item, on favor, carried. Okay, so for the last item for GFL, I'm going to have the solicitor comment on the question. Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Fletcher. On the question you had for GFL, the city solicitor is going to make a comment.
Madam Speaker, we've had an opportunity to discuss this, and we're recommending a deferral for one cycle so we can look further into some of the issues that have been raised.
So, Councillor Fletcher, would you like to move that, defer it for one cycle? Okay, just a sec. We'll have the staff draft that up and we can vote on it. Okay, Councillor Myers will move it then. The deferral's on the screen. On favor? Carried. Okay, that was the last item. So now, may I have a motion regarding absentees? Councillor Ainsley, would you like to move that motion?
Just stand by, Madam Speaker. We'll display it in a moment.
There it is.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That City Council excuse the absence of Councillor Jennifer McKelvey from the March 26th and 27th, 2025 City Council meeting. And I'd just like to add, I wish her nothing but success in the federal election that she's involved in. I'm going to miss her a lot as my ward mate, but I know she'll be an amazing MP for the citizens of Ajax, Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Members, before I ask for a motion to enact the general bills, may I have a motion regarding the consideration of submissions on zoning bylaw and official plan amendments? Okay, Councillor Mantis, do you want to do that one? Sorry. Go ahead.
That committee and council consideration submissions in making a decision on zoning bylaw and official plan amendments.
Okay. All those in favor? Show of hands, carried. May I have a motion to introduce the general bills? Councillor Carroll.
For my mic. Yes, Madam Speaker, that leave be granted to introduce bills 139 to 168, 170 to 245, and 248 to 252.
Shall leave be granted to introduce these bills? All in favor? Show of hands carried. Shall these bills be declared as bylaws and passed subject to Section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006? All in favor? Carried. May I have a motion to introduce a confirmatory bill? Councillor Pasternak.
That leave be granted to introduce bills to confirm to the point of the introduction of this motion the proceedings of City Council meeting 28 on March 26, 27, 2025.
Shall leave be granted to introduce these bills? All in favor? Carried. Shall these bills be declared as bylaws and passed subject to Section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you to staff. Thank you to members of council. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.